Hello everyone, this is part 9 on how to make a tower defense game in Scratch. In this tutorial, I'll be adding a new type of turret to the game. If you haven't seen parts 1 through 8 yet, check them out, links are in the description below. Anyways, let's get started. So first off, to create my new turret, I'm going to first go inside of the turret costumes, and then I'm going to create a new costume over here. And I'm just going to select this and then Control C or copy. And then I'll go to the blank costume and Control V or paste it. And for our new turret, I'm thinking of creating this turret right here. So it's going to shoot twice as fast as our normal turret. So I'm going to create a new barrel. So something like a thinner barrel right here. And I'm going to Control C, Control V, copy it, and also add one over here. All right, so now for the fill, I'm going to select all of these, and then I'll make it a slightly blue colored fill. And all right, so now we have our new turret. And of course, we also want the shooting costumes. So I'm going to right click this and then duplicate. And I'm going to add in this firing image to our new costume. So I'm going to add one right over here. All right. Then I'll send to back. And I'm going to right click this again to duplicate it. And then I'm going to move this one over here. And all right, cool. And also I'm going to create a new costume for the base. So inside of the base sprite, I'm going to right click, duplicate this, and change the color to also a blue color. So now that we have both our new turret and base complete, now let's go inside of our turret icon and create the new icon for our turret. So I'm going to create a new costume, and I'm going to simply copy the base. So select it, Control C, and then go inside of the turret icon and Control V. And then I'm going to also copy the turret. So I'm going to select the turret image, select everything, Control C, and then go to the turret icon and Control V. All right, so now we have our new turret icon. And now let's go inside of the code and let's create clones of the turret icons. So inside of Control, I'm going to grab a repeat and then put it right after the when flag clicked. And I'm going to change this to repeat 2. And then I'm going to drag a create clone of myself and put it inside of the repeat. All right, and now I'm going to go to variables and create a new variable. And I'll call this something like shop icon clone number, and then make sure to select for the sprite only, and then click OK. And now I'm going to grab a set and change this to shop icon clone number, and then I'm going to set it to 0 when the flag is clicked. However, inside of the repeat, I'm going to change shop icon clone number by 1 right before it creates clones of itself. So pretty much what I'm thinking of doing is that I'm going to create 2 clones of the turret icon, and then the first one with shop icon clone number equal to 1 is going to be this turret icon, and then the second one with shop icon clone number equal to 2 is going to be this turret icon. So now I'm going to drag a when I start as a clone inside of Control, and then I'm going to drag an if else and check if the shop icon clone number. So go to operators, grab an equals, and then go to variables, grab in shop icon clone number is equal to 1. Then I'm going to go to looks and switch costume to costume 1. And then inside of the else, I'm going to right click, duplicate this, and check if shop icon clone number is equal to 2. Then I'm going to switch costume to costume 2. So that's our new turret icon. And now for the positioning, we actually want to grab this go to XY block outside from here and drag it inside of the if shop icon clone number is equal to 1. All right, so if I try opening the shop, then as you can see, there are multiple turret icons. So I want to move the second icon downwards a bit. So I'm going to right click and duplicate this go to XY block, and I'll change the Y to something like, let's try Y50 and see how it looks. Okay, maybe a bit more down. So let's try Y30. And all right, cool. So as you can see, now we have our two turret icons. And yeah, so now one problem that I see is that the original turret icon is still here. So we actually want to hide the original sprite. So to do so, let's go to the variables, and I'm going to create a new variable. And I'll call this something like is original sprite. And then I'll select for this sprite only, and then click OK. And when the flag is clicked, I'm going to first set is original sprite to no, because we're creating the clones. So that means when the clones are created, all of the values will have is original sprite set to no. And then after that, let's set is original sprite to yes. And that way the original sprite will have this value set to yes. And then inside of this open shop, let's go to control and then drag an if and check if is original sprite is equal to no. So that means we only want the clones to show and run all of these blocks. So I'm going to drag this if around the entire thing. And now let's try it again. And now in our shop, as you can see, the original turret icon sprite is now hidden. So now we only have our turret clones. And now let's make this turret icon actually be able to create clones of our new turret, because right now it doesn't really work. So to do so, we have to first actually create a new list. So let's scroll down to lists and then create a new list. And I'll call this something like turret types, and then click OK. And this list is going to keep track of all of our different turret types in the shop. So under the when flag clicked, I'm going to first delete all of turret types just to make sure. Okay. And then inside of the when I start as a clone, I'm going to first add to turret types. And since this is the basic turret icon, I'm just going to say add basic to the turret types list. And now for the second one, I'm going to also add to the turret types. And since this is the second turret type, I'm just going to call this add, let's say double to the turret types. So now when we purchase a turret in the shop, we want to know which turret is being selected so that the turret can correctly show up on our map. So to do so, we have to go to variables and create a new variable. And I'll call this something like current turret being bought, and then keep for all sprites, and then click OK. All right. And then for this variable, right after we purchase a turret, we want to set the current turret being bought to our current selected turret type. So inside of our set variable, let's scroll down to lists and grab an item of block and drag it inside of here. And then for this part, I'm going to drag in the shop icon clone number. And then I'm going to select turret types in the list. And then I'm going to drag this right before the create clone of turret. All right, cool. So now if we test it out, if we click on this turret icon, then as you can see, the current turret being bought is set to basic. However, if I click on the second turret icon, then the current turret being bought is now set to double. All right, cool. So now we have to make the turrets switch costume based off of this variable. So inside of the turret sprite, let's see. I'm going to first create a new variable and call this something like turret type. And then for this one, I'm going to select for the sprite only and click OK. And under this by turret block, that's right after when the turret is purchased, then I'm going to set the turret type. So set turret type to the current turret being bought. And then after that, we want to switch the turret costume based off of the turret type. So to make this a bit easier, let's go inside of the costumes. And I'm actually going to name this costume the exact name as the current turret being bought. So this one is going to be named basic. And then for this one, it's going to be named double. All right. And inside of the code, we can now go to looks and switch costume to the turret type. And all right, cool. And now I'm going to do the same thing for the turret base. So inside of the base, let's also grab a switch costume to, and let's just simply switch costume to the current turret being bought. All right, and then lastly, make sure to go inside of your costumes and name the first one basic, or whatever your first turret type is. And then for the second one, name it your second turret type. So mine is double. All right, cool. And now let's try it out. So if we purchase the basic turret, then as you can see, the basic turret shows up. And if we purchase our new turret, then as you can see, our new turret also shows up. So now we have our two different types of turrets. However, now we also want the second turret to shoot faster and make sure to also switch its costumes properly. So I'm going to first hide all of these variables and lists. So, all right. And hide this one. Okay, so currently, all of the turrets are switching costume to costume 2 and then switching back to basic. However, that's not what we want, because we only want our basic turrets to switch to this costume and back. However, we want our double turrets to actually switch to costume 4 and costume 5. So inside of the code, I'm going to create a new custom block, and I'll call this something like shoot animation. And then let's click OK. And inside of here, I'm going to go to control and drag an if else. And I'm going to first check if the turret type, so if turret type is equal to basic. And remember, we set turret type over here when we first created the turret. So if it's equal to basic, then I'm gonna grab these blocks over here and I'll take out the wait 0.8 seconds and put it back. But if it's basic, I'll make it switch to the basic firing animation. However, inside of the else, I'm going to right click duplicate this. And inside of here, I'm going to check if the turret type is equal to double, which is the blue turret. Then we want to switch costume to, let's say costume 4, and then I'll switch back to double, and then I'll switch to costume 5, and then I'll switch back once again. So inside of the code, I'm going to change this to costume 4, and then change this to double, and then I'm going to right click duplicate this, and I'm going to go to control, and then add another wait 1 seconds block, and change this to something like maybe 0.15 seconds. So I sort of want a delay over here, and I'll drag this right after the wait 0.15 seconds, and then I'll change this to switch costume to costume 5, and then I switch back to double. All right. And then remember, inside of here, we have to actually add our shoot animation block. So I'm going to drag this right before the wait 0.8 seconds. And I think I'm going to actually put this replace item list block right on the top of the shoot animation block. All right. And I think that should be fine. So let's try it out. So if I place down this turret, then, okay. So as you can see, it does its shoot animation. However, one problem is that it does not focus on 2 different enemies. It only shoots at 1 enemy at a time. So to fix this, inside of the shoot animation block, we pretty much want it to aim and shoot again. So I'm going to right click and duplicate this part. All right. And inside of the second half of the animation, I'm going to drag this part. So this is after my wait 0.15 seconds. And the turret is going to aim again. And then if it can shoot, then I'll make it switch costume to costume 5 and switch costume to double. And then I'll actually take this out. And now I think this should be fine. And then lastly, let's also grab the replace item, target enemy of enemy progress with dead. And let's drag this right inside of the if can shoot equals to yes. All right, so now if we try it, then the double turret should be able to shoot 2 enemies at a time, like so. As you can see, now 2 enemies die at once. All right, cool. So let's see it again. And yeah, it seems to shoot twice as fast as the normal turret. All right, cool. So now we have 2 different types of turrets that we can purchase. However, I think I want the ranges of these 2 turrets to be different. And I also want the reload speed of the 2 turrets to be different. Because right now, they both wait 0.8 seconds after doing their shoot animation. So I'm going to first fix the turret reload. So I'm going to go to variables first, and then create a new variable. And I'll call this something like turret reload. And make sure to select for this sprite only, and then click OK. All right. And then inside of this by turret block, I'm going to grab an if else and check if the turret type is equal to basic. Then I will set the turret reload to 0.8. So I'll set it to 0.8. Else, I'm going to duplicate this. If turret type is equal to double, then I will set turret reload to, I'll say half, so I'll put in 0.4. All right, cool. And now I'll just drag this right after the switch costume to turret type. And lastly, let's just go inside of our turrets and wait turret reload seconds. All right, so if we try it out, then our basic turret should shoot every 0.8 seconds, like so, but our double turret should shoot twice as fast. So it should have a much faster reload. All right, cool, and it works. Okay, so now let's make the 2 turrets have different turret ranges, because right now they have the same range. So to do this, we have to first create a new list, and I'll call this something like turret view radius, and then click OK. And then right after when the flag is clicked, let's first delete all of the turret ranges, so turret view radius. And let's see. So currently we set the view radius inside of our turret range sprite. However, now we can't do that because we're going to have multiple turrets with different view radiuses. So we have to actually delete our view radius variable. So right click, delete. Okay. And then inside of our turret sprite, let's delete our view radius variable. And we have to create it again. However, now we have to select for this sprite only. Okay, so now our turrets can have different values of this view radius variable. So now inside of our by turret block, when the turret is bought, if it's the basic turret, let's set the view radius to 100. So that is our current view radius. However, inside of our double turret, if it's a double, then let's set it to something like 80. Or actually, I might make the basic turret a larger view radius, so like 120, and then have the double turret have a view radius of like 100. All right, cool. And then after that, we have to actually add the view radiuses to the turret view radius list. So inside of the list blocks, let's drag and add. And I'm going to add view radius to turret view radius. And then the last thing we have to do is to go inside of our turret range sprite and set the size to the item. So grab an item of block and set it to item, select a turret number of the turret view radius. And now the last thing we have to do is to go inside of our turret sprite, and inside of our turret aim and shoot block, we want to check if the enemy distance is less than the view radius, then shoot at the enemy. All right, so now if I hide the variables and lists and try the turrets out, then they should shoot at different radiuses. So let's try something like this. All right. And now, as you can see, our basic turret can shoot at a further range, and our double turret shoots at a shorter range. All right, cool. So now that we have our reload and view radiuses complete, now we want to fix the shop, because right now the description only works for one of these icons. So inside of our turret description sprite, I'm going to go to costumes, and I'm going to right click and duplicate this current costume and change this to our new turret icon description. So I'll call this one double. All right, and then I'm going to center this, and I'll make the cost, let's say 100 instead of 50. So I'll make it 100 and also center this. All right, cool. So now we have our new description for our double turret. And now to make the turret icons actually display the correct description, let's go inside of our turret icon sprite. And for this one, we have to create a new list. And then I'm going to call this something like shop description, and then click OK. And when the flag is clicked, then delete all of shop description. Okay. And pretty much what I'm thinking of doing is that I'm going to have each of these turret icons display show or hide for their shop description item in the list. So I'm going to first add a hide to shop description once the clone is created, and then inside of the open shop, if the mouse is hovering over the turret icon, then I'm going to change the hide into a show. So to do so, I'm going to grab a replace item of block and replace the shop item clone number of shop description with show. And then inside of the else, so if the mouse pointer is not touching the turret icon, then I will duplicate this and change this to hide. Okay. So now if you try it out, as you can see, we have a hide and a hide. And then if we hover over the first icon, then this changes to show. And then if we hover over the second icon, then the second item in the list changes to show. All right, cool. So now we can use this to show a specific shop description. So first off, we actually don't need this shop description number variable anymore. So I'm gonna right click and delete the variable. All right. And I'll also delete it in the turret description sprite. So delete it. All right. And the variable should be gone. Okay. And now inside of the turret description sprite, we want to find whichever item in the list that says show. So inside of the switch costume 2, I'm going to grab an item of block, or sorry, actually item number of block. Make sure to grab the correct one and then drag it inside of here. And then we are going to find the item number of show in shop description. And then inside of the costumes, I'm just going to rename these. So instead of costume 1, I'm going to call this one 1 and then call this one 2. Okay, so pretty much if item 1 says show, then it's going to switch costume to 1. And then if item 2 says show, then it's going to switch costume to 2. All right. And I'm actually going to swap these two. So I'm going to put the hide inside of the if, and then I'll put the show and switch costume to inside of the else. And inside of this if, we want it to hide if none of the items show the word show. So I'm going to right click and duplicate this. And if no items in the list says show, then that means it's going to equal to 0. So if it's 0, then hide, else switch costume to the item in the list that says show. All right, so let's try it out. And if we hover over the basic turret icon, then as you can see, the basic description shows up on the bottom. And then if we hover over the second one, then as you can see, now the bottom says double. All right, cool. And now everything seems to work with the description. However, one last thing we have to fix is the cost, because right now it says that the cost is 100. However, the cash only goes down by 50 when we purchase the double turret. So to fix this, inside of the turret icon sprite, let's actually create a new list. and then I'll call this something like turret costs. Okay. And when the flag is clicked, let's delete all of the turret costs list. All right. And then once a turret icon clone is created, we want to add the cost to the turret costs list. So in this case, since the basic turret costs 50, we want to add 50 to the turret costs. And then since our double turret costs 100, we want to add 100 to the turret costs. All right. And then inside of our purchasing part, that is right here, we want to check if the cash is less than, let's actually duplicate this part, and then change the list to turret costs. And lastly, let's also make sure to change this number right here. So let's right click duplicate, and then go to operators and drag a multiplication operator, and drag this part on the left side, and then multiply by -1, and then drag it inside of here. All right, so that was pretty simple, and now it should work. So if we buy the double turret, then as you can see, now our cash is 0. So that costed 100. And then if we buy the basic turret, then it costs 50. All right, cool. And now we can't buy the double because it costs 100. So now we have our second turret completely added to the game. As you can see, this is our double turret. Okay, so let's try it out. And it shoots twice as fast as our basic turret, but it has a shorter range. All right, cool. Now let's try purchasing a basic turret. All right, as you can see, the basic turret has a larger range, but it shoots slower. And these are our two turrets. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe too, if you haven't already. In the next tutorial, I'll be adding enemy health bars, more types of enemies, and more enemy waves. By the way, this project is shared on my Scratch profile. Link is in the description below. Anyways, that's it for this video. See ya!